So in this video, I want to take you through a couple of the building blocks of Microsoft 365 in more detail. So we've talked about what Microsoft 365 is, the different suites that are there, why Microsoft likes the license suites, but what services are actually included in it. And as you can see, that's a lot. We will call this out by the components of that suite, and in those suites, within the suite, for instance, Office 365 E3, we will look at some of the functionality that is important there. So this is the Microsoft 365 E3 suite in a schematic overview. So if you look at Office 365 E3, what you immediately see is the amount of products that are included in it. And many of these are tools that you might have access to, but you're probably not using. For instance, things like bookings or the InfoPath app or Microsoft To Do or Sway or any of the FIFA included products, Planner, for instance, or you might be using those. But mainly what Office 365 E3 is being used for, most organizations grant access to is things like Microsoft Teams, the Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise, which is the on-premise install of Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. And all the productivity tooling like Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, etc. You probably have a lot more tools available to you than you might be aware. If you want to understand what is available to you, you can go to office365.com, log in with your credentials, and you will see an overview of all the products that are there that you might be able to use. Things like booking, for instance, like I said, or Microsoft Lists or Forms can be quite useful tools for certain scenarios in your day-to-day work activity. Now, like we said, Enterprise Mobility Security E3 is the security functionality aspect of the entire Microsoft 365 E3 suite. So within EMS E3, you would have an Entra ID Plan 1, a license, which would basically consist of all the dark blue blocks. Here, many of the important features here are, for instance, Identity Manager, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, and conditional access. So these are usually very important to organizations to make sure that whatever you are doing, you're doing it in a safe way. So if you have to set up MFA when you start to work at a certain place, that most likely comes from here. Then your device might be managed by your organization, or certain applications that you're using might be managed by your organization. And that's done through Intune Plan 1, which contains the device management capability and application management capability. On top of this, we talked about this in previous video as well, you have certain access rights to your on-premise environments. And by that, I mean you have the Windows Server Client Access license rights, you have Active Directory Rights Management Services, you have information protection, configuration manager, and endpoint protection are all included in this suite and can be used by you, or in this case by your organization, to make sure that you are using what you need to be using. And finally, you have the Windows 10 Enterprise E3 installation. This is your operating system. It's Windows 11, by the way, but you still might be on Windows 10. This includes a large stack of different functionality as well. You get things like App Locker, things like BitLocker to go, to make sure your device is secured. You have Windows conditional access and a Windows firewall, auto patching, universal print if you're printing over a network, for instance. All that is included within Windows 10 or Windows 11 E3. Finally, Microsoft has made available some additional security features to make your device that you're using Windows on more secure through the use of Defender for Endpoint Plan 1. This is available for all M365 E3 licensed users, but I don't see this being used heavily at the moment. But certain things in here might be of crucial importance to your organization, like Defender for Cloud Apps integration, cross-platform support, mobile threat defense, and web content filtering. Now, if we start to look from here at the lower suites, the Microsoft 365 E3, and we start with Microsoft 365 F1 as the smallest and cheapest suite that Microsoft offers in the Microsoft 365 family. And this will look a lot smaller than what you saw on the previous slide. And that's because basically, like I said in earlier videos, this is much more limited in the functionality that it offers. So you get 365 features within Microsoft 365 F1, but not a lot of features that offer the main productivity benefits like Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive. These things are generally not included here. You might see Exchange Online Kiosk here, but that would only be added to Microsoft 365 F1 to enhance the performance of Microsoft Teams, which is included in F1, and to make sure that you are able to do calendaring within Teams. Also, for bookings, you might need the Exchange Online Kiosk access. However, this being included in the suite doesn't mean that you have the right to use that mailbox, and your organization should be aware of that whenever you're buying the F1 license. From a Windows 10 or 11 perspective, there's nothing included, so you don't get the ability to install a Windows operating system, but you do have an entire Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 license with all the functionality that is also included in the E3 and what we're going to see on the next slide, the F3 license. Why is that? Microsoft considers security to be very important, and to make sure that everybody is covered with the same level of security is paramount, because if you don't cover a certain part of your organization, then that is the single point of failure, basically. So if you have people out there working and not being covered, for instance, through multi-factor authentication, that might prove an issue if they manage to get the credentials for that account and then they have access to the entire environment. And finally, for this video, we're going to look at Microsoft 365 F3. Again, you see a lot more functionality here. A full Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 here as well, with all functionality included. A Windows Enterprise for Microsoft 365 F3 license, which is different to the one that is included in E3. And the main functional differences are called out here on the bottom right of the screen. So Microsoft 365 F3 includes Windows Enterprise, but you don't get auto patch, you don't get the long-term servicing channel, which means that you can only install the current branch. So you always need to make sure that that device that is using this installation is always up to date with the latest Windows OS. And you don't get any MDOP features, but that last one is a bit of a strange one because MDOP is going to be retired at some point in the coming year. For the Office 365 aspect of Microsoft 365 F3, you have most functionality available. You have a lot of productivity tooling here as well. So Exchange Online is available here, SharePoint Online is available here, OneDrive is available here. The only thing that you don't get is the Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise. You only get the option to use Microsoft 365 for mobile or to use it for the web. So Office for the web is included in this.